All right, guys. After reviewing, the game film from Saturday, obviously a lot of disappointing things, a lot to learn from. But like I just told our guys, we just got off the field, right? Great things to learn from. We got to move on from that and focus on Navy. Obviously, we know the opponent ahead, but like I said, post game, um, some disappointing things, right? We got to win our one-on-one battles. We got to win the matchups. And you go back and look at it. It seemed like every play, whether it's offense or defense, there's one guy not necessarily doing their job, and that was a recipe for disaster. You look at some of that stuff, a lack of execution overall, too many missed tackles. You look at the third down. We were, I believe, that their offense was 11 of 13, with 8 of those being third and second or less, and that's you can't live like that. So as a defense, we've got to find a way to get them in third and manageable, right? Third and 5 or more, and that's part of being good on first and second down. What happened was so often they were hitting those checkdowns, we'd go to make the tackle, instead of it being a 2-yard gain, which is okay, they end up being 7-yard gain. So we've got to do a better job tackling. That's something we'll really focus on this week, how we do, and then just for us offensively, right, getting into a rhythm and momentum. And whether early on we didn't, it's like we didn't find our way till midway through the third quarter, and then once we gained some confidence, we were able to roll a little bit, establish a little bit of the running game. But obviously way too many missteps early. Like I said, our guys are putting their blinders on and now focus on Navy. Last time we played up there was a 10-7 game, and it was the first time we've won at Navy in the history of the program. So, from there on, we've got to be able to go up there. We know what kind of game it's going to be. We know what type of program Coach Ken runs up there. His 15th year at the helm. Got a lot of respect for not only the program, but those individuals that turned the academy. But we're excited to get the next opportunity at Navy this Saturday.
Hey Ryan, you had a couple of guys that were new in the secondary, and you had a veteran like Quindell Johnson. And there were times it seemed like maybe they were second guessing where they needed to be and all that. Was there a little of blown assignments, or was it just no pressure, so he had all day long to throw?
A perfect combination of both. There were some times that we didn't get the pressure of the quarterback, so he was able to sit back. And you allow a quarterback like Will Rogers to sit back and have the time, he's going to pick you apart. And then other times maybe where it was adequate pressure, it may have been a blown coverage, a blown assignment, and that's stuff we got to get cleaned up. And then there were some that guys just got a clean release and got past our DB. So, you look at those things. There's almost all 3 of those things, situations that occurred Saturday night, and we've got to get a way to get corrected. Our guys, the great thing about our guys was like they knew it, right? When they weren't hiding from it, hey, that was my mistake. I got to get this fixed. I know this is something we went over. I know I got to be able to play man a little bit better, or hey, we got to get home with the pressure a little bit better.
Any update on Pounder, Sincere, and Tyler Murray at this point?
Yeah, I think they're all day to day. It's so we got back, as you guys well know, I'm sure just like everybody, we got back around 4 a.m. And then so we were able to get the guys in yesterday afternoon to take a look at them, and they'll be day to day. So we'll have hopefully more determination as the week goes on. But today they were held out, and we'll see where they are as we progress.
If Sincere and Tyler can't go, obviously knowing how important linebackers are dealing with this option, what are some of the backup plans just in case either one of them aren't able to go?
Yeah, obviously those are 2 big blows to what we're able to do. Jeff Canton played a lot in our base defense last week. We expect to have a big role this week. Andrew Jones, a name that we hadn't seen, a redshirt freshman, played a lot last game. And then we'll be able to move some pieces around. We got guys like Davion Mayo, another redshirt freshman that was thrown into the mix. So we feel confident whoever's in there will be able to step up and do fine.
Right, it's the biggest takeaway from Saturday night, just the fight that they showed in the second half, or is there something else tangible that you can point to?
Yeah, look, there not a whole lot of great things to take away from. Let's be real with it. A lot of teachable moments. I was pleased with the kicking game. Other than the onside kick, I didn't think we didn't give ourselves a chance. But it's good to see Chris Howard go out there and clean extra points. And the field goal, the punting was pretty solid other than some of the directions. But, yeah, the one takeaway, and I told our guys this, and this was not coach speaking, I mentioned this to you guys post-game, was there wasn't a single doubt on the sideline. And this is year 7, and I'm not saying this because I'm the head football coach, but you look at the guys' eyes in the locker room, you look at the guys' eyes on the sideline, they're bought in. They're dialed in the meeting this morning just saying, okay, we know what we got to do. And the belief and the understanding of, hey, we've got to progress. We weren't good enough, and it starts with me, right? But the buy-in is there. And so, yeah, the perseverance, this is a group, 115 strong. They're going to go and fight their tails off. And obviously, you always want to see it show up in the win column because ultimately that's what really matters. But the perseverance of this group, I'm very proud of that.
How can you is it easy to flush maybe that game going from an air raid to a triple option?
You got to flush it quick. And it's one of those, right, it's no different than when you win a game. Everybody's telling you how great you are. You're getting pat on the back all week. You're great. You're doing I go back to last year. We were 3-0. Everybody pat me on the back. Oh, please stay. Don't. You're the best. 3 weeks later, people tell me you get lost. So it's no different. I tell our guys, hey, that's in the rear view. Flush it. Let's go. And it does probably because it is a completely different scheme. And now we got to focus on this. But we know, guess what? We're going to pay some passing attacks later on, soon down the road. But to really narrow in and hone in on a different offensive attack, it'll be good for our defense. A different challenge for sure, right? And so it's going to take great focus. We know that we got to continue to tackle better because if we don't tackle anybody, it's going to be a long, long season. And so if we can improve upon that and have great focus, it'll be good. But I told our guys, hey, coming off, obviously, other than media obligations, right, the focus 100% has to be on Navy. And our guys get that. And I think we'll be pleased with the efforts and focus this week, especially facing a completely different offense.
How do you work on tackling, since there were a lot of open field misses, without just absolutely killing the guys in practice?
Yeah, you have to be smart about it, right? It's the NCAA put in rules, right, where there's during training camp you're only allowed 3 true scrimmages, and we maximize those, and that's not an excuse. We've got to be better, right? We work on tackling the rolling dummies. We work on the donuts that we roll. We work on 1,000 different ways. We actually have a tackling circuit. And clearly, we got to find ways to do it. And you don't want to just go unleash on each other, right? We get some good work, right, where the ones go against the ones for speed work, but that's more of a thud. But we've got to be able to make sure we're really getting it there. I think being able to see it on film, Jarvis, also allows them to say, okay, yep, that's where I was wrong, or hey, now I got to go take out the air. And you hope for some of it. Maybe it's just a first game where you had the opportunity to go take the shot and you didn't take it. You were kind of buzzed your feet rather than going to get it. And you hope a combination. And then maybe at times, right, if we're getting versus our look squads or scouts, maybe we got to do a little bit more live segments on that. And it's something we haven't done in the past, but if that's got to help us improve, we certainly will.
Those missed assignments that you talked about, how much is that acclimating to the new Matt Burns system?
I think that's a fair share of it. You think that, okay, hey, this is something we were able to see on Tuesday practice. We seem to have a fair understanding of it. Wednesday, yeah, we're getting it, buttoning it up. It looks really good as we progress in the week. And you felt comfortable and confident. And, okay, hey, this is what we got to do. And, like I said, I got great confidence in the scheme, and so do our players. But there was 1 or 2 things, well, this is a different route concept that we hadn't seen. Or maybe we got to get this done or that. So there were some, things that, man, you're right, that was the adjustment I should have made. Sometimes maybe we need to simplify the menu a little bit, allow our guys to go play faster. And then, the players also understanding, like, hey, that was something that I saw that I should have done. And we talked about it. One of the keys to victory was just doing your job. I know that sounds simple. I know it's plastered in the Patriots locker room, just doing your job. And sometimes, again, like I said, it starts with me, we didn't necessarily do our job the assignment called for.
Then with facing Navy, how much time do you kind of prepare for them leading up? Because obviously you aren't just going in this week, but what is that kind of like for preparing for this offense so early in the season?
Yeah, well, I think it's one of those things we've talked about with the way it's worked. You have to spend a little time in the off season, right? We talked about them in June. We talked about them in July. We spent some of training camp going through that, especially our defense, because it is a different type of fit. We can't just roll the ball out on a Tuesday practice and say, okay, here's triple option, here's how we have to defend it. So we like the plan we have in place. Again, like with everything, we got to go out and execute. But it is different. If we didn't have to face Navy, I think it would be like, okay, well, it's a completely different focus, throughout training camp. But as you're doing that, you have to be able to spend time on it. And it was no different, right? If we're playing Navy week 9, at some point you got to make sure you work on it. So when that week comes, it just happens to be the second week of the season, you got to be ready for it.
Is it kind of a place where you practice is it time during practice, is it time during workouts? What's kind of that process where you weave them in without, say, overshadowing Mississippi State, I guess?
Well, so this past week, the focus was 100% on Mississippi State. But weeks prior in training camp and even in OTAs, we did have a focus on Navy.
So it's kind of like you set aside some time for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'd be, if we had to say an hour for an OTA deal, right, we would say, okay, let's spend 30 minutes on Navy once a week.
And then does it help too because you guys have had such success against them? Does it make it easier preparing for them, or just still difficult because it is such a unique offense?
It is such a unique offense, and so there's times where you feel like you got a great plan, and you watch Navy go against some of these teams that are top 25 teams in the country. Everybody says, well, "What happened?" If you're not assignment sound, or they've got a wrinkle, and you don't find a way to stop it, they can expose you pretty well. So I mean, we all know those games with Navy; they're all tough fought ones, especially since my history here at Memphis. And we've seen what they're able to do. So, yes, the success helps, but new defense coordinator, new players, we got to go out there and execute.
I'm sure you guys will use the word discipline, stay at home, stay in your lane, because we know Navy even though they struggled last week, if somebody gets out of their position, they could take it to the house. So stressing those terms this week in the practice.
100%. It's got to be, right? Leading back to that first thing, we got to tackle well. And then secondly, it's got to be about eye discipline, making sure we're locked in, dialed in on the keys, because they're going to get a lot of false keys with different things. With Navy's doing some pulling, some down blocking, some different things in the backfield. So it's just trusting their assignments. And that's one of those things that's hard, because you allow your eyes to get big, you're exactly right. They'll find that gash in there. So we got to be disciplined, sound football, and be able to get to where we need to get to in a timely manner, placing that triple option. And that's always going to be it, but even more so with this type of offense.
Tim comes in, and you described it as kind of a molding with your base and your ideas. Do you think with that, it's fair to say that this offense might get to the level that you wanted to before the defense, just given how fresh Matt's ideas are to this team?
No, you hope they both progress nicely. I mean, you really do, right? I mean, you hope the product that you saw week one, regardless of the outcome on the field, no matter where you are, it's no different, right? You hope that the outcome looks different than what the spring game looked like to week one, all the way hopefully to week 14, right? You hope that you're progressing nicely. And we've seen that. People have said, in the past, hey, your defense always plays better in the second half of the season. Maybe sometimes, right? Why does the offense get off to fast starts and then struggle later in the game? So I think just getting in the rhythm with things will literally help us and see us. But it's one of those things. How do you judge the defense, right? You're playing an air raid team, now a triple option. If we go out there and give up 0 passing yards this next game, you guys went, oh, the passing defense is fixed. That's not necessarily the key. It's just based off of what we're seeing and what we're doing.
Did you guys talk to Selt at all about taking that hit in the third quarter? I think it was that on the design run. You guys talked to him a little bit. I know he's bigger, but talking about kind of sliding, maybe avoid those.
Yeah, Seth is showing some athletic ability. Obviously, he has put on some weight. He did slide. And credit to the guy from Mississippi State. It was a clean hit. I mean, it could very easily have been one of those where he got him underneath the chin. The Mississippi State defender did a clean hit directly on the chest without targeting, had his eyes up. And Seth was able to bounce above it. Maybe last year, if he didn't have as much muscle, it would have knocked the wind out of him. But he's tough, and he showed some of his athleticism a little bit on Saturday night.
Was there a bit of wincing? Because obviously he did have that injury last year. Was that all? Was it little nerves, or just, hey, he's tougher? It showed the toughness for them being able to take that hit better.
Yeah, I mean, wincing, maybe I may have been the only one. Me and his mom, may have said, ugh. But other than that, and maybe some of the fans, other than that, he popped right up, and I was like, okay, he's good to go.
What was your biggest takeaway on your offense, and how much did the drops really sort of keep it from gelling?
Yeah, we had 6 drops in that game, and you go back and look at it, and we want to constantly be able to challenge them a little bit vertically, right? So many of our things were underneath stuff, and part of it was, we wanted to move the pocket with some bootlegs, some naked, some sprint outs, and so often we had a defender in our face, which is part of that, and you try to hit the underneath instead of one of those things that you say, okay, well, that should have been an 8-yard gain. We're getting tackled for a 2-yard gain, and so our first down efficiency wasn't very good. And then some of our shots, right? You look at the shot to Joe Skates on the post, literally 6 inches away. In fact, if you look, the ball bounces right back in. So, again, close doesn't matter in hand grenades and horseshoes. We had the shot over to Markel. If he had rolled out a little bit earlier out of his route, would have been it was a pretty nice thrown ball. So you tried to challenge them a little bit vertically. We weren't able to connect on those things. It looks like we didn't really find our rhythm in the run game until midway through the third. But you were able to sit there and say, okay, we were always trying to find, you guys would ask that question, okay, what is Jay Ducker, Brandon Thomas healthy, all those things. I thought all in all the offensive line protected pretty well when it was all said and done. You sit there and say, well, you had very little offensive production. How could they have done that? But, you try to take away the positives and learn from some of those things. But the drops certainly hurt you, right? Some of those key third downs. And our guys know it. I don't need to sit there and point out. Obviously, they watched the film and said, okay, yeah, we've got to improve and do those things. It's not like we don't practice catching. It's not like we're on the jugs. But you just hope maybe those are some first-game things that occurred. And, I thought the quarterback played a pretty clean game. Regardless, I get it, right? I'm not oblivious to saying that the offensive production wasn't what it needs to be. But you pull back and you take away and say, okay, how do we get started faster? Maybe getting into a little bit of a rhythm earlier, and maybe gain confidence, right? Because there were some wrinkles there. Look, credit to Mississippi State. They're a great defense. You go back even to, I don't like to harp on last year, but last year, right, our points versus them were a fumble recovery for a touchdown and the punt return, right? So we knew it was the type of caliber SEC defense they've had, and the reason why they're one of the tops, and they got the best of us.
You mentioned that running game, and hopefully you'll get a lot more opportunities at Navy. But there wasn't a lot of totes for the running backs. But I think, off the top of my head, maybe 7 carries for Thomas thereabouts. Was it 5 maybe for
5 for
Ducker, 3 or 4 for Asa Martin? Is that the way you want to go forward, or would you like to see Ducker or Thomas get 15, 20?
Yeah, ideally we'd like to. It was a low possession game,
Sure.
and we know Navy's going to be a low possession game. You look back and when you go, I don't know if we've ever had more than 55 plays versus the Naval Academy because of the nature of their offense. And guess what? Because Mississippi State was able to ball control it in a different style, right, with the checkdowns, they were able to manage the clock pretty well. I didn't look at the clock management at the end, what the time of possession was, but that limited our carries. Plus, when
41-19, I think.
yeah, I mean, it was that poor on us, and you get to the point where the game got out of hand. Score-wise, it's harder to do it, but I do like, right? I mean, I think we've got great faith in Brandon Thomas. Maybe he is the majority of the deal, but Jay Ducker showed some flashes and ability. He's got great vision, and then be able to sprinkle on Asa. Asa showed some stuff on third down. Fantastic catch. Obviously, can't have that fumble at the end of the game, but I do think, right, we want to be a little bit more balanced, but it all depends on where we are getting in front of the sticks, playing manageable downs, and then also what the score indicates.
Speaking of which, Rodney didn't play in the first half. Rodney Owens, was that just because you said guys are playing, or was that some other reason why he didn't play in the first half?
Yeah, no, that was specifically it. He played special teams, but then as a safety, he did not, because we had different safety rotations with Quindell in the middle safety some, right, and then you guys saw the LD Paulk, right, and then we had some other guys that we rotated at that other position, Josh Hastings, so I mean I think that was kind of where we were initially at. And then, with just moving some guys around, then he was able to get in as a defensive back in the second half.
Obviously, every week is important, but chance to flush that game, conference opener this weekend. I mean, without making it too big, any extra sense of urgency?
Look, there is a sense of urgency, absolutely, and I want our guys to feel that sense of urgency without feeling the pressure, the strain. I literally talked to him about having blinders on. You guys have heard me use that term a lot because this day and age they can't focus on anything else. It's just got to be on this next game mentality, and the message will be the exact same next Sunday. Hey, next game mentality. But you're exactly right. The ability to go play a conference game of this magnitude so early, it's great. It's a wonderful opportunity for us. And I just think that look, our guys are staying positive. They got a great mindset. They got a great approach. But I feel, truly believe, right, you go get this win at Navy, deep breath. All right, let's go and just show what we're all about.
Going back to Rodney, though, I mean, you mentioned obviously being tied on him being as a leader and, described as a player coach on the field. Is it concerning, or was that part of the scheme that maybe was a little bit challenging where you don't have one of your better defenders and one of your experienced defenders out there for a half?
So what was the question?
The question was more like, is it concerning about something that you want to look at, maybe not changing, but just is that something you want to look at more about, like, hey, we want to get one of our better guys out there maybe more?
We're always going to play the guy that we feel is the best ability for that game, right? And so maybe Rodney is a better run defender, so maybe he plays more versus Navy. You're great. Rodney's had a lot of success here and is a leader, like I said, and Rodney Owens has played a lot of quality football, started on special teams for us. And so, maybe that is. We'll look at all the personnel. Especially given the different scheme, because anytime you take away, that's one of the things, right? We can't just sit here and say, okay, hey, what do we got to look at schematically? Because that's one of the things as coaches, we always have to look at what we're doing schematically. Now, personnel. One, do we put our guys in the right spot? And then two, do we have the right guys on the field? And sometimes you sit back, okay, after game one and say, okay, did we have the right guys on the field? And that's, as we progress this week, we'll continue to look at it. We did play a lot of guys. I think, we traveled quite a few, but I think 80% of the guys that traveled played. Unfortunately, some of that was because of injury. But we'll continue to look and see. But look, we got full faith in Rodney Owens.
Hey, I know it's only been about 14 hours since, but have you had a chance to reach out to Mike at all about the win over LSU?
I have not. I woke up to a text message from one of their coaches in the middle of the night. But yeah, I'm very happy for him. Obviously, that was one of the few times I actually did turn on the TV. Plus, I was getting a lot of text messages. As you guys know, I have no idea what's going on in the world. So someone said, "Hey, you want to turn on the game?" So I turned it on and was able to watch that, and just so happy for him. He's worked really hard. The first 2 years. He's building the program the way he wants to, and gosh darn, he's a fantastic coach and a great friend. And the way that ended, you could just see, like, I could sense, I could tell exactly what was going on in his mind, and you could see him talking to himself and doing some self lip reading. But just you could see when that kick up block, you could just see the emotions that were going through, and then obviously the score play at the end, but just so happy for him, his staff, some of those guys that were, led to me being here where I am, and credit to what they did here at Memphis. So yeah, I'll reach out to him at some point this week, and I think they've got a little extra time. But man, just so happy for him. I know he's going to continue to do big things there.
Hey, Coach, I know this has nothing to do with this season, but last week they expanded the playoffs. I know that's got to help you on recruiting, on the recruiting trail. How did that decision? What's your opinion on the decision?
Yeah, I think it's just like with conference realignment. There's nothing I can do about it right now. Right. It's not going to affect me today, right. But I do think it ultimately does help in recruiting. It does also show that everybody's got a chance, right? You win your conference, especially the AAC. Now all of a sudden, here we go, college football playoffs, and I don't even know what year it's going to start. Right? Nobody does, right? They said maybe 2026, and maybe tomorrow they may decide. So, you guys know the nature of it. There may be a conference realignment coming tonight, right? And we'll all find out at the exact same time. But that's one of those things I can't do anything about. That is great news. I think it's good for where we are currently, and we'll be able to progress nicely. But yeah, it is something now you can tell recruits, hey, to handle our business, we'll be able to get to the college football playoffs.
Failure to get pressure on Will. Was that? Where does it from? Do you have guys who can get pressure on the quarterback? Like, where do you? It may not be an issue this week, but going forward. Yeah,
a fair question. I think first off, credit Mississippi State's O-line. They did a nice job. They did a great job in pass protection. We looked at some things that we've got to do a better job. It's got to be generated. We don't want to blitz every time and say, okay, with a 3-man rush, a 4-man rush, we've got to be able to get home on some of those guys. And we weren't able to. And that allowed Will to be able to sit back. And like I said, one of the top quarterbacks in the country, to be able to sit back and have time. And then when the DBs did a fantastic job covering, the linebackers did, the check down was there instead of making that tackle. So we've got to find ways to get it done without having to pressure. And, we talk to our personnel about it, right? Whether the guys up front, hey, what is it a different pass rush move we got to try? Is it got to be moving guys? Is it got to be a simulated pressure? But, yeah, it was concerning. It is concerning. But I think we are capable. I think the guys up front are really talented. I mean, you look, Jalen Allen's been able to show that he can do it. Guys like Wardalis Ducksworth have shown they've been able to do it. Cromartie Hamilton has shown that he can be able to do it. And so you look at some of those guys, and it's just got to be able to do it on a consistent basis, and we weren't able to do that on Saturday.
Last thing for me, Ryan, the running back rotation with Jay, Brandon, and Ace, is that kind of what we can expect so far? I know you guys brought the guys with you, but those three seem like they kind of got the catch. Is that the rotation we're looking at probably right now from now?
I think in the short term, yeah, I really do. I think, like I said, you guys have always said, hey, what do we want? This, the 700-head monster, not necessarily. So I think that's where we're at right now with it.
Those three, for the most part, maybe, like you said, Weaver and everybody else as needed.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay.